He thought he could play us like pawns in a game he controlled. But when the truth about the $80,000 debt emerged, everything shifted. This isn't just a story about a man who lied. It's about a mother's fierce resolve to protect her daughter and expose the deception lurking beneath the surface. Before we dive in, let us know where you're tuning in from, and don't forget to subscribe. Because tomorrow, we'll unveil the secrets that will leave you on the edge of your seat. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow through the kitchen window as I stirred the pot of stew, the scent of simmering tomatoes and herbs filling the room. My phone buzzed on the counter, vibrating against the tiled surface. I wiped my hands on my apron and glanced at the screen. Sophia. Her name always brought a smile, but today, a flutter of unease settled in my chest. The last few weeks had been tense, like walking on thin ice, and I wasn't sure when it might crack beneath me. I answered, voice steady despite the tremor inside. Hi, sweetheart. How's the new house? Mom, we need to talk, she said, her voice tight, almost clipped. About David. The name hit me like a cold wave. David, the man my daughter married just a few months ago, the charming stranger who had somehow wormed his way so deep into our lives that I barely recognized the woman Sophia had become. What is it? I asked, setting the spoon down. There was a pause. He said something to me yesterday. Something hurtful. My heart sank. I had noticed the subtle shifts, the way David's eyes would darken when I walked into the room, the curt replies when I asked about their plans. But hearing it from Sophia was a blow I wasn't prepared for. Tell me. She hesitated, voice barely above a whisper. He said I was just the backup plan. Like I wasn't really important to him. That I was something he settled for, because his real life was elsewhere. The words echoed in my mind, sharp and unforgiving. I could almost see David seated across from her, that smug smile twisting into something cruel. Did you ask him why? I managed. Sophia's sigh was heavy with disappointment. He said it didn't matter, that I should be grateful he was here at all. Her pain was raw, and I felt it deeply, a mother's instinct flaring to protect and to fight. I closed my eyes, fighting back the sting of tears. How had this man, so polished and persuasive, managed to peel away the woman I raised, the daughter who once confided in me, without hesitation? The fragility of their new family was exposed in that one cruel phrase, and I feared it was only the beginning. Mom, there's more, Sophia continued, voice trembling. I think something's wrong with our finances. Bills not paid, charges I don't recognize. I'm scared. Fear knotted in my stomach. I had always prided myself on managing the household budget, keeping a careful eye on every cent. But I had trusted David, trusted that he had good intentions, that he loved my daughter as I did. Have you talked to him about it? I asked softly. No, I don't know if I can. He shuts down when I bring it up, or worse, he turns it around on me. Says I'm paranoid, that I don't understand how things work in his world. The image of David's dismissive smirk flashed before me. I remembered the way he had looked at me the night of the wedding, like I was an inconvenient shadow, a relic from a past he wanted to erase. His charm had fooled us all, but beneath it was something darker, something calculating. I wanted to reach through the phone, to hold Sophia close and promise her I would fix this. But all I could do was steady my voice. We'll figure this out together. I promise. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, the silence pressing down like a weight. Memories of Sophia's childhood flooded back. The laughter, the scraped knees I had tended, the late-night talks about dreams and fears. This woman was still my little girl, even if her eyes now held shadows I didn't recognize. Suddenly, the thought struck me. What if David's cruelty wasn't just emotional? What if he was endangering the future I had worked so hard to build for Sophia? The nagging feeling that something was deeply wrong grew stronger, urging me to look beyond the surface. The next day, while tidying the living room, my eyes caught a few unopened envelopes on the coffee table. I picked one up, glancing at the return address, an unfamiliar bank. Curiosity and dread mingled as I opened it. Inside was a statement with numbers that made my head spin. Charges, withdrawals, payments I hadn't authorized or even heard about. My hands trembled. I sat down, heart pounding, as I scanned the pages. Large sums of money moved, disappearing into accounts I couldn't trace. It was as if someone was bleeding our finances dry, and the trail led straight to David's influence. I thought of Sophia's worried voice, the way she had looked at me when she said she didn't know who she could trust anymore. And suddenly, my role as a mother shifted from protector to warrior. I would not, let this man destroy the life I had fought to give my daughter. Later that evening, I met Sophia at her apartment. We sat close, hands intertwined, sharing the silence that spoke volumes. "Mom," she said softly, "do you think he planned this? That he meant to trap me?" I shook my head, though doubt gnawed at me. "I don't know, but what I do know is that you are not alone. We will uncover the truth, no matter how painful it is." Her eyes filled with tears, but there was a flicker of hope. "Thank you, Mom." I squeezed her hand, determination hardening in my chest. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but I would walk it with every ounce of strength I possessed. For Sophia, for the family we still hoped to save. In the quiet of the night, I found myself replaying every interaction with David. The way he had dismissed my questions, the subtle digs disguised as jokes, the moments when his charm slipped to reveal something colder. How had I missed the signs? Was I blinded by hope, by love for my daughter and the family I wanted us to be? The question haunted me, but there was no time for regret. I had to act. I resolved to dig deeper, to confront the shadows lurking beneath our fragile family facade. If David thought he could manipulate and control us, he was gravely mistaken. As I prepared for the days ahead, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Fire. A fierce, protective flame that would not be extinguished. I would fight for my daughter's future, for the truth, no matter the cost. The family I cherished was at risk, and I was ready to stand in the breach. The first step was to face David, not with anger, but with quiet resolve. To peel back the layers of deception and expose the man behind the mask. The battle was just beginning, and I would not back down. The morning light spilled through the blinds as I dialed David's number, fingers trembling despite the resolve I'd mustered the night before. When he answered, his voice was smooth, almost too casual. "Hello, Mrs. Bennett. To what do I owe the pleasure?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "David, we need to talk. About the finances. About what's happening with Sophia's accounts." There was a pause, then a laugh, soft, dismissive. "I think you're misunderstanding the situation. Sophia's finances are under control. Maybe you're just worried unnecessarily." I felt a flicker of frustration. Unnecessarily? There are charges I didn't authorize, bills unpaid. I see withdrawals in your name that don't add up. His tone sharpened, cold as ice slipping through silk. "I'm managing things in the way I see fit. You don't need to interfere." The word stung, but I pressed on. "I'm not interfering. I'm trying to protect my daughter. You don't get to dismiss me like this." A sigh flowed through the line, heavy with condescension. "Mrs. Bennett, you don't understand the complexities of our world. This isn't your domain." Then, as if to punctuate his superiority, "Maybe you should leave these matters to those who know what they're doing." I gritted my teeth, anger rising, but I kept my voice calm. I've managed my own household for years. I worked hard to give Sophia stability. I'm not about to let you jeopardize that. He chuckled, a low, patronizing sound. "You're a responsible woman, no doubt. But this isn't about responsibility. It's about trust. And frankly, I don't trust your judgment in financial affairs." His words cut deeper than I expected, a cold blade twisting in a wound I didn't know was still raw. I swallowed hard, the weight of his dismissal pressing down. How had our conversations come to this? How had the man my daughter loved reduced me to someone so irrelevant? After the call ended, I sat back in my chair, chest tight, mind racing. His arrogance was maddening, but beneath it was a dangerous undercurrent. The refusal to acknowledge any concern that wasn't his own agenda. This wasn't just about money. It was about power, control, and the slow erosion of my daughter's life. The days that followed were a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. I found myself sifting through documents, bank statements, bills, trying to piece together a puzzle that grew more complex by the hour. Each discovery chipped away at the fragile trust I'd clung to. A pattern emerged. Large sums withdrawn without explanation, credit cards maxed out, loans taken in Sophia's name without her knowledge. The betrayal was staggering. How could someone so close, someone who vowed love and protection, do this? Late one night, I sat in the dim light of my study, the city's hum a distant backdrop to the storm inside me. Memories surfaced, my life before Sophia's wedding, before David's arrival. A life of quiet sacrifice and steadfast love, of working long hours to provide for my daughter's future. I recalled the nights spent sewing her dresses, saving every penny for college tuition, the countless moments I put her needs above my own. In sharp contrast, David's reckless disregard for consent and boundaries was a betrayal not only of Sophia, but of everything I stood for. His manipulation was a poison seeping into the heart of our family, threatening to destroy the foundation I had built. I thought about Sophia, her laughter, her dreams, the innocence that was rapidly fading. How could I protect her when the danger came from within her own home? The helplessness was suffocating, but beneath it a fierce determination grew. I would not let this man win. One afternoon, I confronted David in person. I arrived at their home unannounced, heart pounding as I knocked on the door. When he opened, his eyes narrowed at my unexpected presence, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. "Mrs. Bennet," he said, voice clipped, "to what do I owe this intrusion?" I stepped inside, steady despite the storm of emotions. "We need to talk. Now." He closed the door behind me, the click echoing like a challenge. "I'm busy, you know." My gaze didn't waver. "Busy with what? Running up debts? Taking out loans in my daughter's name? You're playing a dangerous game." He laughed, the sound void of warmth. "You don't understand the business world, and frankly, you have no right to question me." I felt the familiar sting of dismissal, but I refused to back down. "I understand enough to know you're risking everything Sophia has, everything I've worked for." His expression hardened. "You're overstepping. This is my family now. Your time is over." The words hit like a slap, sharp and final. But instead of retreating, I stood taller. "Not while I still have breath to fight. I won't let you ruin my daughter's life." He stepped closer, voice low and threatening. "Careful, Mrs. Bennet. You don't want to make enemies." I met his glare without flinching. "I'm not afraid of you." The tension hung thick between us, a silent battle of wills. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about money or control. It was about reclaiming respect, about fighting for the family I loved. Later, as I left their home, I felt the weight of the confrontation settle on my shoulders. But beneath the exhaustion was a spark of hope. David's arrogance was a shield, but every shield has its cracks. I thought about the life I had led, years of hard work, sacrifice, and unwavering devotion to my daughter. I recalled the nights spent juggling jobs to pay for her education, the tears shed over missed opportunities, the quiet pride in her every success. This man might try to dismiss me, to belittle my sacrifices, but I knew the truth. I was more than a meddling mother. I was a protector, a guardian of the future Sophia deserved. In the days that followed, I reached out to old friends, trusted financial advisors, people who had helped me navigate difficult times before. Their kindness and expertise were a balm to my frayed nerves, a reminder that I was not alone. Together, we began to untangle the web David had spun, uncovering the full extent of the financial chaos. The numbers were staggering, the debts mounting. But with each revelation came clarity, and with clarity came power. I also learned more about David's background, stories whispered among acquaintances, hints of reckless behavior, a trail of broken promises. The man I had once tried to trust was unraveling before my eyes. Through it all, I held on to Sophia's hand, the bond between us growing stronger amid the storm. She began to see the man behind the mask, and the pain of betrayal was tempered by the comfort of a mother's unwavering love. One evening, as we sat together over cups of tea, Sophia looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have seen it sooner." I reached across the table, squeezing her hand gently. It's not your fault. You loved him. That's all any of us want. Her voice was resolute, a quiet strength emerging. I want to make this right. With your help. I nodded, feeling a fierce pride swell inside me. Together, we would face the challenge ahead. David's denial and condescension had only fueled my determination. I would not be silenced or sidelined. The woman I was, the mother who had given everything for her daughter, was ready to fight back. The battle lines were drawn, and I stood firm, ready to protect the family I cherished from the deception threatening to tear it apart. The light from my desk lamp cast long shadows over the scattered papers as I sat, determined to map out the next steps. The truth was heavier than I'd imagined. David's actions had left a tangled web of debt and deception that threatened to engulf us all. But surrender was not an option. Not now. Not ever. I reached for my phone and dialed the number I'd been hesitant to call. The lawyer my sister had recommended years ago, someone known for tenacity and discretion. When he answered, his tone was professional yet warm, as if he sensed the urgency behind my voice. "Mr. Collins, this is Margaret Bennett. I need your help." The conversation was brief, but promising. He agreed to meet me the next day, and I felt a flicker of relief. It was the first tangible step toward reclaiming control. That evening, I gathered the documents, bank statements, credit card bills, loan agreements, all evidence of the financial chaos David had wrought without consent. I made copies, organized notes, and prepared questions. This was no longer just about protecting Sophia. It was about exposing the depths of betrayal and ensuring justice. The next morning, I arrived at the law office, nerves buzzing beneath my calm exterior. Mr. Collins greeted me with a firm handshake and an empathetic smile. As I laid out the evidence, I watched his expression darken, the weight of the situation settling in between us. "This is serious," he said gravely. "Unauthorized financial activity on this scale is not only unethical, it's illegal. We'll need to act quickly to protect your assets and your daughter's interests." His words ignited a fierce determination in me. "I want to hold him accountable," I said. "I want to make sure this never happens again." Over the next few days, I worked closely with Mr. Collins and a trusted financial advisor, a woman named Elena, whose expertise was invaluable. Elena's sharp, I caught discrepancies I'd missed and pieced together the timeline of David's transactions, revealing the full extent of the damage. Together, we devised a plan, not just to recover lost funds, but to prevent further abuse. We would freeze accounts, challenge unauthorized loans, and build a case strong enough to confront David legally and publicly if necessary. But beyond the legal strategy, I knew this battle was personal. David's betrayal wasn't just financial. It was a deliberate attempt to dismantle the family I held sacred. I resolved to shield Sophia from further pain, even as we prepare to face the harsh realities ahead. At home, Sophia and I grew closer, united by the challenge before us. We shared late-night talks, tears mingling with whispered hopes for a future free from deceit. I saw in her eyes a resilience that matched my own, a readiness to fight for the life she deserved. One afternoon, as we pored over documents together, Sophia paused, her voice trembling. "Mom, what if this tears us apart? What if confronting him changes everything?" I took her hand, squeezing gently. "Change can be frightening, but sometimes it's necessary. We're not alone in this. We have each other, and that's what matters." The days blurred into weeks as we pushed forward, gathering evidence, consulting experts, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The stakes grew higher, but so did our resolve. Then came the moment I dreaded, the phone call from David. His voice was cold, edged with menace. "I hear you're poking around where you don't belong." I met his threat with quiet strength. "I'm protecting my daughter. That's not negotiable." His laugh was bitter. "You think you can stop me? You don't know who you're dealing with." "I know enough," I replied, "and I'm not afraid." The conversation ended, but the tension lingered. David's threats only underscored the importance of our mission. In the days that followed, I found unexpected allies, friends who had witnessed David's manipulations, professionals who offered support and guidance. Their encouragement bolstered my spirit, reminding me that I was not fighting alone. I also reflected on my own journey, the sacrifices, the quiet strength that had carried me through life's challenges. I realized that this fight was not just about exposing David, but about reclaiming my own voice, my power, and my dignity. As we prepared to confront the truth, I felt a mixture of fear and hope. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with pain and conflict, but I was ready. For Sophia, for our family, for the future we still had the power to shape. The day I confronted David felt like the slow tightening of a noose, the final moment before everything unraveled. I stood in the dim light of the small conference room, papers neatly stacked before me, evidence of the $80,000 debt he had secretly piled onto my name. The air was thick with tension, my heart pounding in my chest as I waited for him to arrive. When the door opened, David stepped inside, his usual confident smile replaced by something colder, sharper. His eyes flicked over the documents, then back to me, narrowing in disbelief or perhaps calculation. The mask slipped, revealing the man beneath, the selfish, manipulative figure I had come to despise. "I don't know what game you think you're playing," I said, voice steady despite the rage simmering beneath. "But this stops now. You put me and my daughter at risk with your reckless spending, without a word of consent." He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Reckless? You think I'm reckless? I'm doing what's necessary. You're just too blind to see the bigger picture." "The bigger picture?" I echoed incredulously. "You've stolen from us. You've lied, manipulated, and betrayed every ounce of trust. $80,000 in debt, on my name, without permission. This isn't business. It's theft." David's face darkened. "You think you can accuse me and walk away unscathed? You don't know who you're dealing with." I held his gaze, unflinching. "I know enough to see the truth. And now, so will Sophia." I glanced toward the door, and to my relief, my daughter stepped inside, eyes wide with shock and hurt. The room shifted. What had been a private confrontation became a family reckoning. Sophia's voice trembled as she spoke. "David, how could you? How could you do this to me? To us?" David's facade cracked completely, his arrogance dissolving into defensiveness. "You don't understand. I did what I had to do to keep us afloat. By lying to us," Sophia's voice rose, pain bleeding through. "By dragging us into debt without telling me, you promised to be honest." His silence was an admission. The truth spilled out in fragments. Reckless investments, secret loans, a desperate attempt to maintain an illusion of wealth and control. The man who once seemed charming was now revealed as a master of deception. Family members who had gathered outside, drawn by the rising voices, now entered, expressions ranging from disbelief to sorrow. The betrayal was no longer hidden. It was laid bare for all to see. Sophia turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to believe any of it." I pulled her close, whispering, "It's not your fault. We'll get through this together." David's threats dissolved in the face of undeniable evidence. The confrontation was painful but necessary, a painful severing of lies that had bound us. As the hours passed, the weight of betrayal hung heavy, but beneath it, a fragile thread of hope emerged. The truth had been spoken, and with it came the possibility of healing. I looked around the room, friends, family, my daughter, and felt a renewed strength. This reckoning was the first step toward reclaiming trust and rebuilding what had been broken. David's presence now felt diminished, his power stripped away by exposure. The battle was far from over, but the scales had begun to tip. In that moment, I understood that the hardest confrontations often lead to the most profound transformations. The pain was real, but so was the promise of a future forged in honesty and resilience. As we faced the consequences together, the unspoken bond between Sophia and me deepened, grounded not in illusion, but in truth. The day's revelations marked a turning point, a painful reckoning that stripped away pretense and revealed the strength buried beneath the wounds. And as we stood united, I knew that the journey ahead would demand courage, but it would also bring the healing we desperately needed. The courtroom was cold, sterile, a stark contrast to the warmth I desperately wanted to hold on to. But as I sat beside Sophia, watching the proceedings unfold, I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. The battle that had seemed so insurmountable was finally reaching a turning point. Weeks of meticulous work with lawyers and financial counselors had culminated in this moment. The evidence was overwhelming. The unauthorized debts and fraudulent loans that David had incurred were being stripped from our names one by one. The judge's voice was steady as she acknowledged the weight of the betrayal and the steps taken to restore our financial security. Outside the courtroom, Sophia and I clung to each other, the tension melting into relief. "Mom," she whispered, eyes shining with gratitude, "thank you for never giving up on me." I smiled, feeling a swell of pride and love. "We did this together, sweetheart, and now we can start healing." The days that followed were a delicate dance of rebuilding, repairing credit scores, attending counseling sessions, and fostering open conversations that had once seemed impossible. Sophia and I found ourselves rediscovering each other, the fractures in our relationship slowly mending with every shared moment. Friends and family rallied around us, their support a balm to the wounds inflicted by David's deception. The daughter I had raised, the woman who now stood beside me, was stronger, wiser, and ready to reclaim her life. David's presence faded from our lives, replaced by a renewed focus on truth and trust. The pain of betrayal lingered, but it no longer defined us. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sophia turned to me with a tentative smile. "Mom, I'm ready to move forward, not just from David, but from all of this. With you." Tears pricked my eyes. "So am I, darling. So am I." In that moment, I realized that our worth was not tied to the mistakes or betrayals we had endured, but to the strength and love that bound us. The journey had been harrowing, but it had forged a bond unbreakable by deceit or hardship. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of hope, I knew that our story was far from over. But this chapter closed with promise, a testament to resilience, honesty, and the enduring power of family. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.